All right, so on the left-hand side, oh, Sophia, good morning. I marked you absent, so make sure you warn your mom and dad, okay? If they email me, I'll tell them that you came. I just have to mark you absent if you're late. Okay. We're simplifying using the i's, right? So on the left-hand side, I just want to distribute that 9i into both. So I get 9i times 5, 45i. And then 9i times negative 3i is negative 27i squared. It's not. You're so high demand. All right. The I squared becomes, let's try this again. I squared becomes negative 1, and this is 45i plus 27. So remember, when you're writing these answers, it's going to ask you to put it in standard form, which means the I term comes last or the B comes last. So it's 27 plus 45i. I would say most likely a question like that could be open-ended, like fill in the blank by the time we get around to the test, which I haven't even gotten there yet, but when we do. And so that kind of question, you would type it in, and in that order is how you would want to see it. Again, usually no spaces. Okay, so I'll do the same. Number 3 is your rationalizing your denominator. So what do I have to multiply both the top and the bottom by here? You could say it. Good. 5 plus I. It becomes like the sole responsibility of the people in front of me to answer faster than the people at home. It's like a race. All right. So now the top, I can FOIL that out. I get 25 plus 5i plus 5i plus I squared. This becomes negative 1. 25 plus 10i minus 1 is 24 plus 10i. And that's my numerator. The denominator, I can use the shortcut here. The a is 5, so 5 squared. The b is actually 1, so it's 5 squared plus 1 squared. 25 plus 1, which is 26. Now this time all of that can get reduced. They're all divisible by 2. This would be 12, 5, and 13. So I do 12 plus 5i over 13. Or you can even split it 12 over 13 plus 5 over 13i. If it's open-ended, either one of those will work. If it's multiple choice, you'll only see one, obviously. Good so far? Yes, questions from home? All right, so let's finish the notes for 2-4, and then I'd like to go over test results at the end since I got to be able to publish that yesterday. So 2-4 is complex numbers. Again, we talked about the I yesterday. We're going to dive a little bit deeper today into those. The principal square root of a negative just says, for any positive real number b, the principal square root of the negative number negative b is defined by, if it's square root negative b, it's I root b, okay? So here's the most important part of things like this, is you have to take the root in terms of I first and then simplify it. So if I have this square root of negative 5 times the square root of negative 5, and I multiply that first, let's say, I'd get the square root of 25, which is 5, and that is wrong. I have to take the I out first. So really this becomes I root 5 times I root 5, which is I squared times 5, negative 1 times 5, which is negative 5. That is correct. This is wrong. So you have to take the I out first. If you multiply first, you could lose the I and obviously get the wrong answer. So be really, really careful.
Mr. Crispweiser?
Yes,
I thought I equal to square root of negative 1, so why is the square root still there after you take the I out?
Because this is just, the I is just the one part of it. So if I did negative 1 times 5 like that, I'm only taking the negative 1 out. The 5 is still underneath.
Oh, okay.
So the negative off the front of the number comes out as an I, but that number is still part of your expression. All right, so example 6 says, perform the indicated operation and write the result in standard form. So the very first thing we're going to do here is take the I out. You can put it on the front or you could put it after the square root. It doesn't matter, as long as you make sure it's not underneath the root. Now, obviously, as it is, it can't be simplified. We're going to break these down into a product of their primes. So 54 is 2 and 27, 3 and 9, 3 and 3. And for each pair of 3s, 1 goes to the outside. So this is going to come to the outside. The 2 and the 3 don't have a match. So they stay underneath and get multiplied out, and I get 3i root 6. And again, that could be also written as 3 root 6i. As long as the I is not under the root. With me so far? You guys good? Yeah? Good at home?
Is this question subtracting or multiplying?
It's subtracting, so we're not done yet.
Oh, okay.
So now I'm going to take that 24 and make it 2 and 12, 2 and 6, 2 and 3. And this time I can take out a pair of 2s. It's going to come to the outside, get multiplied by the 7 that's there. So that becomes minus 2 times 7 is 14. The 2 and the 3 are left underneath. Multiply it out, and it's root 6. So that can also be written as 14 root 6i. It's the same thing.
How did you get the 3 in front of the I? I should have did that.
It's not allowed, Matt. You have to hold it till 2:30. Figure it out. All right. When you break that 54 down, right, it becomes like I did 2 and 27. 27 is 3 and 9. 9 is 3 and 3. So you had a pair of 3s. That brings 1 to the outside, and then the 2 and the 3 multiply to stay underneath.
Right, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. It could have also been 9 and 6, and then you could have kept the 6 underneath. You could do this a bunch of different ways. What was that, Amanda?
Why did you bring the I under the square root?
No, it's not under the square root. So it's after the square root. It can't be under the square root. I was just saying you could write it either way, but be careful if you do write it as the second way. You cannot put the I underneath the square root.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So either of these ways to write are fine, okay? So now they both have an I, and they both have a square root 6, which means I can do 3 minus 14 or negative 11i root 6, which can be written like that, or negative 11 root 6i, as long as the I is not underneath the root. Everybody good? Questions?
Is that a fraction?
Say that again?
Is that a fraction? Or
No, it's one or the other. So this is an answer or this is an answer. It's just two different formats.
Yes, Chris, what I think?
Yep.
Can I join on your other device?
Sure, Sophia. Questions on that? So again, make sure you take the negative out first before you do anything. You might be multiplying square roots, you might be adding square roots, you might be subtracting square roots, you might be dividing square roots, but before you do anything, you have to take the I out. Okay, you try these. Perform the indicated operations and write the result in standard form. Alright, so the first one, I am going to expand and FOIL that out, but before I do that, I have to bring the I to the outside. So this becomes 4 plus I root 7 times 4 plus I root 7. Then I FOIL. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times I root 7 is positive 4 I root 7. Could also be written as 4 root 7I. Just make sure the I is not underneath. Then another 4 I root 7. Then an I squared and square root 7 times square root 7, which is 7. So this becomes negative 1. I get 16 plus 8I root 7 minus 7, or 9 plus 8I root 7. So that's like the one exception I would say to standard form and not having the I all the way at the end, is if you put the I in between the root and the number, which is fine. If this is open-ended, I would take this. If it's multiple choice, it will most likely be written as 8 root 7 with the I all the way at the end like that, okay? But again, just realize they are both right. Just make sure that I does not go underneath the square root. Questions on that one? I keep wanting to look there, but they're there. And then I look like a You're always looking at the side of my face. Everybody's good? Okay, and then B, again, first thing to do is take that negative out. So I get negative 8 plus I root 48 over 4. 48, you can either do 16 and 3 or you could break it all the way down. 24, 2 and 24, 2 and 12, 2 and 6, 2 and 3. There's 1, 2, that's going to go to the outside. And a second 2 this time is going to go to the outside. The 3 stays underneath. So I end up with negative 8 plus 4I root 3 over 4. And then those are all divisible by 4. So this is 1, this is 1, this is 2. Negative 2 plus I root 3 or negative 2 plus root 3I. Same answer, different order. Questions before we move on? Okay, last topic is the quadratic formula. So we've talked about it a lot. We wrote it like on the very first review, but it's back and it's here to stay. Negative b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And to do this, this is ax squared plus bx plus c. The a is in front of the x squared, the b is in front of the x, the c is by itself. This happens when you have something that is not factorable, and i's are not going to be factorable because they're not real numbers, right? So this a is 4, b is 12, c is 15. So I do the opposite of b, negative 12, plus and minus the square root of 12 squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. Negative 12 plus and minus the square root of 144. This is 60 times 4 minus 240 over 8. Negative 12 plus and minus the square root of negative 96 over 8. Most of the questions in this section you can assume will have an I, which means that negative should be there. So this, take out the I, this becomes negative 12I, negative 12 plus and minus I root 96 over 8. 96 breaks down into 2 and 48, 2 and 24, 2 and 12, 2 and 6, 2 and 3. That's one pair of 2's, second pair of 2's, and the 2 times 3 stays underneath. So now I have negative 12 plus and minus 4I root 6 over 8. All of that's divisible by 4. This is 1, this is 3, this is 2. So I get negative 3 plus and minus I root 6 over 2. Now the way these solutions are usually written is in two separate fractions. Negative 3 over 2 plus and minus square root 6 over 2I is pretty much what standard form looks like. If it's separated by a comma, then it would be negative 3 over 2 plus root 6 over 2I and negative 3 over 2 minus root 6 over 2I. So all of these are technically right. Okay, they're just different formats. Oh, let me see if WebAssign wants it in separated.
Oh yeah, it was like weird yesterday.
For that question, like you looked ahead?
I was like doing the ones that I could.
Yeah.
And, like when I put in those types of questions, like it was really weird.
Yeah, it separates it out. So it'll take the I at the top or to the right, but it does separate that out. And it says, oh, it doesn't give you an order. I was gonna say, sometimes it'll say put the smaller one first, which would obviously be both negatives. So you just want to make sure it's separated out. On WebAssign, it wants it like this, separated out into two different answers. Okay. The I can be at the top or at next to it, but it needs it separated out. All right, that's it. Questions for me on 2-4? Okay, so I'm going to open up.
What was the other formula that we wrote down, the ax squared plus bx?
That's just, like, that tells you what's what. That's when to use it. So the ax is this one, the bx is this one, the c is this one. So that just tells you what's a, what's b, what's c.
Okay.
I feel like this was like a little early Christmas present. Okay. This is, the average is a 94. Okay. Most of the questions you did pretty good, so I'll skip some of them. This first one is not this, and it sucks because this is like an all or nothing question. So you either get all the points, you get none of the points by simply just getting in the yes or no. So remember that if the x is raised to an even power or an absolute value, it is not 1-to-1, and if it's not 1-to-1, it doesn't have an inverse. So this question being x minus 8 raised to the second power is not 1-to-1, okay, which means it would not have an inverse. This one, the inverse should have been like the fifth root, right, of y, no, the fifth root of x, which was not there, so I took that no inverse. This one you had to type into your calculator, so let's do that together because this one was a little sloppy.
The inverse one freaked me out.
Yeah, I know. That's my fault.
Being like, I didn't get it, but I know it's in
I
there.
changed my answer last minute. I'm so mad.
To that one, I even said that you.
Like, I tried to make sure of it. Like,
Oh,
so
okay.
I was just like, also whatever. That's fine.
Just a quick question.
Yes, I.
So x, the x to the fifth, that has no inverse?
No, it does have an inverse. I just said it wasn't there, so you could have put that it didn't have an inverse.
Oh.
It should have been the fifth root of x. So when you switch it, y equals x to the fifth, switch it, x equals y to the fifth, solve, you'd have to fifth root it.
And that's not good.
No, that is fine. It should have been there. It wasn't there, so I said if you didn't see it to put no inverse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so this one you had to, actually it's probably easier for me to do it here. It was negative 1 over 64 squared plus 15 over 32 x plus 3 and then graph it. And your graph looked like this. And it said, your question was, how far horizontally is the ball from the kicker when it's at its highest point? So I want to know the horizontal would be the x. Okay, I want to know the x value when it's at its max. So I'm going to find the max and the min. I'm going to go to my max, which is there. X is 15. Which is what the question was looking for. So some of you, I'm assuming, got confused. Some people, like, I don't know, because I don't know. I think I looked at your work. Some people put the y value, okay? It wasn't asking what the max was. It was asking what's the horizontal distance from the kicker to that point. The other thing I saw was that people put, they took the x and they added on the space behind the y-axis. Okay, so that happened. Like they figured out what this was, so they did this 15 plus this. Okay, but the kicker is here, so that should have just been 15. X should have been 15, and then I think on the other version, the x was. That's not the real one. The other version was this one. Wait for it. was 17 over 32 plus 2. So it was 17 for the x value. Well, that's not what I wanted. Yep. Say that again. Can you repeat that?
I can't see the answers on my iPad, so I don't know which one I had.
Why can't you see the, oh,
I think it's
this is the question I gave you?
Yeah.
Was it, so you have to go to your work. If you go to your work, you should see it. So if your answer ended in a +2, then it should have been this. If it ended in a +3, it should have been this. But yeah, that's why I told you, remember, take that picture and go to your work. So check your last answer, and you should see it. Because I don't know which one you had either. You had to show me which one you had. That was,
Oh, this was that one.
this was that one. Yep. Okay. Oh, I lost my, let me get back my square.
So then it's marked wrong there, but it could have
Yes.
been right. Oh.
So if you look underneath your feedback, if you got the points, I gave you back the points if what you put on your paper was right. That's how that was graded. So that was the one that you didn't see. Some people got lucky and like hit the right one, not most people, okay? But some people did, and so that it would actually have marked it right. But if it didn't mark it right, then I went to your work to check to see what you had put, and if it was right, obviously I gave you back the credit. The same was this vertex one, right? So a lot of you probably got marked wrong. However, when you look at your answer, I probably gave you back the credit because your work showed the correct answer. So that quadratic function, which again, I think you had a different question, so it wouldn't match. You just have to look and see if you got that right. So this, for that one, I would have done negative b over 2a, okay, and then plugged it back in. For this question, you did good, you did good, you did good. Those two were a mess because those automatically marked them wrong based on the fact that you couldn't see your question and I had to give you a question. Overall, most of them were pretty good. Here's the other 1-to-1. So from the beginning, this was the other 1-to-1. Now it's raised to an odd power, and an odd power is fine. An even power is what it can't be. So this is 1-to-1. There's the other word problem. There's the other vertex, which although it was marked wrong, may not, like it says 4 of them were marked wrong, but that's because you didn't answer there. You answered on your answer sheet. I think that's good. That's good. Here's the other word problem, which again was marked wrong because it was on your answer sheet. There's the other, yeah. Okay, here's your root. That was good. The rest of them you guys did good on. Same word problem. Vertex marked wrong. Yeah, same thing. So all the ones that you got most missed were the ones that were the word problems, which made sense because you should have gotten them wrong because you didn't know what they were. All right, any questions for me before we've got like 4 minutes before I send you on your way or on to start your homework. So tomorrow your 2-4, the remaining part of 2-4 is due. Tomorrow we will finish, my sophomores come back, right? We will finish we'll do the notes for 2-5. Tomorrow's your first regular day. Tomorrow your lunches even are regular, so you'll have first lunch, second lunch, third lunch. You will be in classes until 2:30 tomorrow, and same on Thursday. And then Thursday we'll do the review. Like, remember, we're not going to quiz, but we will stop and review like we would have quizzed. And I will post to you what you would have quizzed, what it should have looked like if it was on paper anyways. I'm not creating it in Canvas, but you'll know that. And then Friday we will do 2-6. Monday we'll do 2-7, which is like graphing rational functions. And then your test next week will be 2-3 part 2 through 2-7. And that'll be your last big grade of the quarter. Everybody good? Questions? It's like a now or never situation. Okay, Make sure you check your feedback on those, especially the word problems ones. Make sure that that's, like, I think I didn't have any problem finding them. I will tell you that some of you had a problem with, not this one because I didn't do any picture upload, but with the quiz. And I filed a ticket with Canvas last Monday about it, and they just got back to me this morning saying that your picture did not load because you didn't let it load fully before you hit submit. So if you were one of the people, and you should know who you are because I had to email you, that I said your question number 1 or 2 photo was not loaded, it was literally stuck in loading, and you emailed it to me, that is why that happened. And it can't happen moving forward. I'm not going to email 17 people. I thought it was a Canvas mistake. It's not. It's a user error. You need to make sure you wait until you see your picture load as your answer before you hit submit, which again is your timing constraint, okay? Because on the next test you will upload a picture of a graph, at least one. So you need to make sure that you pay attention to that upload.